Have we summoned him? Will he arise?
Not quite. But we did manage to summon something quite worse.
What could be worse than the Dark Lord himself?
The GenXperts.
All right, everybody, this is the GenXperts podcast. I'm your host, Derek Phelps. I'm here again today with my wife, Bridget Phelps, Dr. Derek Allen Clements, Miss Courtney Clements, Dr. Amanda Salazar Higgins, and Jonathan Higgins. We are the GenXperts because we lived it, we survived it, and yes, we have the t-shirt to prove so. Today's episode, the Satanic Panic of the 80s.
Dun, dun, dun. Satan.
I will let someone who knows a little bit more about this than I do kick it off because I know a little bit, but not a lot. Satanic Panic. Anyone want to start?
All right.
The whole lecture apart.
Give us what you got.
Just give us time every once in a while to just chime in, but lead the charge.
It's old as time. It's probably part of the struggle between conservative mindsets and liberal mindsets. And at the time, the Satanic Panic's really taken off. Reagan comes in. And so, there's, depending upon who you're looking at, there's all sorts of stuff going on. But you can probably trace the United States part to something that happened in Canada. The book published in 1980, same time Reagan was elected, was Michelle Remembers, which was the first case of recovered memory theory being used. And she went through 14 months of extensive therapy with this one individual. And she was recounting as a kid. No, I mean, not 14 months. She was held hostage in her memories for 14 months by this satanic cult. And the stories just got greater and greater and greater. And I know you know a little bit about this thing. And then they eventually get together and co-write a book about her experience, and of course go on a book tour and start making a lot of money. And this really publicized this particular type of therapy. So you end up with, by 1994, the New York Times article in 1994 said there was an estimated 12,000 unsubstantiated claims of satanic ritual abuse since that 1980 event. And so we can go from there.
Wow.
So what do you remember of it?
The book was really graphic. I know that people that read it, I mean, of course I didn't read it because I was too little, but the people that read it, they started seeing everything as being a satanic sign, or it was signs of a ritual. I mean, if you came to a little clearing in the woods and there just happened to be something that looked somewhat like a circle in the middle of the woods, they must be having some kind of satanic ritual out there in the woods,
What we call a fairy ring. Something that's completely innocent, natural.
We'd be told there were devil worshippers out there.
Oh, yeah.
Of course, the urban legend stories. I grew up in Valley View, so the stories we grew up on where there's devil worshippers out at Keller's Chapel Cemetery, and they sacrifice dogs and cats and cows and you name it, the devil worshippers were doing it.
Yep, ours was Shiloh Cemetery toward Maynard.
Yeah.
And there was also a place in Jonesboro called the Five Gates of Hell.
Was there?
There was. And I think I still know where this is.
And why did they call it the Five Gates of Hell?
And when can we visit?
Well, they were gates that you had to go through.
Okay.
That were open. There was a purple paint all over the place.
The no trespassing thing?
Along the roads.
Okay.
Not on the road itself. That would be weird, but possible.
Okay.
And then there was the foundation remains of a structure that was supposedly a KKK.
Oh, no.
How did I grow up in Jonesboro with the weird people I grew up with and miss that one?
I don't know, but now I want to know more.
Yeah, you have to ask around about that. Yeah, field trip.
Yep.
I'll have to find out on that before I can find it physically.
And I mean, just going back to this idea that everywhere, basically saying the center of retreat, there was the story that I think it was Johnson and Johnson. I don't know. Was it Procter and Gamble?
Procter and Gamble.
Procter and Gamble, that their logo has 13 stars or 6 stars or, some number of stars on it. And clearly Procter & Gamble is a satanic company and its logo proves it.
One of those you can find anything you're looking for if you look hard enough.
Yes.
Now, would this tie into, I guess, because remember going to school, we'd show up in Halloween costumes and celebrate it all in school. We had Halloween plays, and then you started seeing that not happen anymore in the school system. Fall festival.
Well, yeah, because, I remember even in 3rd grade that we had to have a pumpkin party instead of a Halloween party because one of the girls in our class was Jehovah's Witness. And so they didn't do any holidays. And then there were other parents that they were concerned, the pre-Karens, they were concerned about Halloween and us having any kind of scary thing. I remember my own family because, I was raised in an incredibly conservative Christian home. Dancing, Cornelia, this is my own Footloose version here. Dancing was a big no because it's ritualistic. Couldn't do that. I couldn't wear any kind of Halloween costumes that had to do with witches or ghosts. I mean, it was really in a church bulletin, I think, one year. No ghosts, no witches, no scary things like that that could be possibly construed as part of satanic. Demons.
Mentioned in the Bible.
Demons, ghosts, all of those things, they were a no. You could come to the little Halloween party. It was still called a Halloween party when I was little.
Which is kind of interesting in itself.
Yeah, but it was supposed to just be about dressing up in like a Smurf costume or whatever with the mask you can't breathe through. Not...
Right. Now we're in
Smurfs. They do all kind of work together in a little commune. Maybe they were. Maybe we to the Russians.
We don't know what happened inside those mushrooms.
It's kind of once it gets to the U.S., what starts popping up. The book tour, and of course I don't remember if I mentioned Pastor, Pazder is the name of the therapist. From that, you get many spin-off groups that are now trying to hunt for these people because they believe they're real.
Yeah.
And some of our first cases, the big ones were like the McMartin preschool trial, in which they were both found innocent, but it took 7 years of court battles to prove they're innocent.
Wow.
What were they accused of?
Child abuse. Yeah.
Ritualistic Satanist child abuse.
Yeah.
Including sodomy.
Yeah. With objects and so on. And of course, if you go and you look at, Michelle remembers, a lot of the stuff that people know is what you wrote about, So, and there's an interesting, somebody wrote somewhere, adults remember this, and it's all kind of the same stuff you talked about. But if you talk to children, it was a little different, and maybe it's just the way they explain it. But it was more along the lines of witches and murdered babies and things along those lines. But when the adults are recounting it, it's very different. It kind of reminded me of that UFO syndrome thing. All aliens
look alike. Yeah. That's what I was thinking.
An interesting thing there. So, got that conservative thing going on, but also think about the movies they were watching, that our parents were watching when we were little. Rosemary's Baby, Exorcist, The Omen. We sneak in, we watch a little bit of it. We get scared.
Mm-hmm.
We hear other people talk about it, and then it's pretty easy to implant thoughts in our heads.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Our suggestion is a mighty thing.
And just before that, we've got Manson, Take Bianca stuff, and there's all sorts of things going on. But for the teachers in the room, the 1980s was the time that mandated reporting started. So when we started hearing our kids say weird things, here we go. We got to go to the principal, too. So there's an interesting connection with that.
Didn't that cross over, too? I guess it probably did, because I remember, in the music, there was a lot of reported satanic messages in the rock and roll. Backmasking, yes.
Black Sabbath. And Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, you'd have thought that it's Ozzy. Yeah. No.
Well, he is the Prince of Darkness.
It ends up with Tipper Gore's Parents Music Resource Center.
That
and parental advisories.
That made it so much more fun to find the ones that were explicit and buy them.
Speaking of NWA, the last one, and Two Live Crew, and those. So why in the world did we... I didn't buy them, but I sure borrowed them from a friend to listen to them.
We were told not to listen to them, so what are you going to do? Well, obviously, I want to know why I'm not supposed to hear this.
Yeah, exactly.
And, the backmask, you, of course, again, and I sort of feel like that sometimes on ghost shows with the EVPs, you kind of, sometimes they're kind of clear, but sometimes you hear what you want. And yes, when you play a record backwards, it sounds creepy as hell. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. But you're listening for messages like, God is dead or Paul is dead.
Yeah, wasn't that on the White Album it was supposed to have been?
Yes.
The wildest backmasking I ran into, I saw an article about this, so I looked it up, downloaded the song to Audacity, flipped it around. There's a terrible band called Cradle of Filth.
That's a name.
The right way. But listening to it backmasked, they've actually got the Lord's Prayer.
Oh,
that's pretty messed up. I like that.
Yeah.
That's very deliberate.
Oh, that is so deliberate.
Yeah,
That's a major skill.
Yeah, it is. That's awesome.
They have anything to do too with what playing Wizard of Oz and Dark Side of the Moon at the right timing, and it's supposed to have all this meaning behind it.
Yeah, we were hunting for messages everywhere then.
Oh, yeah.
When they start showing up in films too, you see a lot of intentional messages in the film, kind of almost making a mockery of it all.
Yeah. Subliminal, going the wrong way.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I didn't grow up Catholic, but I knew all about holy water, and I knew about crucifixes and the power that they were supposed to hold because of movies, like The Omen, where there's a demon, there's this or that, and the power of the holy water and whatever. And I remember thinking, how does one make water holy? And thinking, I wonder if I could get like my preacher to bless water. What I thought I was going to do with it, I don't know. But I thought, does it really have to be a Catholic priest or can it just be any preacher? So, random thoughts when you're little.
Like me and Derek were talking about earlier, like a lot of these accusations that were coming out, it was almost verbatim or exactly from scenes of those movies, The Exorcist or The Omen or Rosemary's Baby. People were making claims. Well, it just so happened it matched up really well with these films. Like they had seen it.
You got to the point that the FBI behavioral science unit was looking into this stuff, and this was basically going, not that
Nothing.
there's nothing here.
Yeah.
So all it was is exactly that, a panic.
Mm-hmm.
Because look at the movies that were coming out, listen to the music that was coming out, all during the time when the great conservative deity Reagan was going to save us, and everything's going wrong.
And the battle cry, they're coming for our children.
Oh, wow. Yeah. No,
They're not coming for you. They're coming for your children.
I don't remember where I heard about it. I just remember knowing about it. And I don't think it ever was brought up in the little country church across the road that we went to. But Halloween is when they were going to snatch you to use you for a sacrifice because of the high Sabbath. And so, that time of year can still be warm in Arkansas. So here I am with the windows open at night going, do I need to have it all the way open or can I put it down just a little crack? That way, if anybody tries to get in, and I could have the little stick up there to make sure that thing doesn't go.
So you can poke the Satanist and they'll leave you alone.
I actually felt very safe because what we heard was that they wanted blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls.
Oh, yeah. I was one of those girls.
Yeah.
I had the blue eyes then.
Thank
Hair was
goodness I
blonde.
didn't get you.
I remember going from being able to roam free in Walmart to I had to stay where I could touch the cart. And that is all a result of that. It really is.
I always wondered if they couldn't find a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl really come after me because I'm a guy, blonde-haired, blue eyes. So, well, I'm be next.
Well, if they saw you now with your long hair from the back, they might think you are. One thing, there was an uptick of coverage on this stuff on TV. And I remember going where there started being more preaching about it on TV, about things that were going on. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I can't remember his name.
Jerry Falwell,
Billy Graham. Sorry, Mom. Sorry, Jesus.
And Pat Robinson.
Yeah.
Pat Robertson.
Yeah. I remember them talking. I remember my mom watching those because when Dad was on the boat and away, for 30 days and Mom was trapped at home with her imagination and whatever the TV told her in church, she saw a lot of that kind of stuff. And I know that she was very worried about the things that I was being exposed to, at school and out with others. I could always do things with church, but I didn't do a lot of doing things outside of with church whenever I was little. And sometimes there would be things on TV that I couldn't watch, but she would watch, like Geraldo Rivera.
Oh, yeah.
And there was devil worship, exposing Satan's underground.
He's always underground.
1987.
Yeah, 1987. It's supposed to have happened, Carl Carl Junction, Missouri, which, here we are, Northeast Arkansas. We are just across the line. Mander, you were even closer to Missouri.
They got to you, didn't they?
that makes it feel, like, oh my gosh, this person, this ritualistic thing happened to them and they survived, but our children might not. And this is too close to home. Okay. It doesn't matter how many hundreds of miles, whatever that town is away from there. It starts being a border state. It's happening and it's going to happen here. And so I think the TV definitely amped up and increased the panic. It amplified it big time.
And again, they're coming for your children. It's that it taps into that fear.
And then who are the people making all the accusations? Scared church folks who are seeing a world change in the 1980s, and they got the pressure of the Cold War and jobs changing and all the other stuff, and they're looking for some reason, and what better reason than Satan? And now, like the other Derek said, they're coming for your children.
Yeah, and you also have rebellious teenagers who are no different than other rebellious teenagers in the past, but now you throw this panic into the mix. Well, it's obviously, music they're listening to and all these messages that are in it. That's why they're turning this way.
The metal music and the marijuana. It's just ruining our children.
And don't forget Dungeons and Dragons.
Dungeons and Dragons.
I'm going to go back and talk about the bands for a minute, though, because, a lot of these, we're talking about bands like, of course, at the time, Kiss, which everyone said was Knights in Satan's Service.
I forgot about that.
I firmly believe that Kiss meant Knights in Satan's Service.
And my Kiss albums were confiscated and traded away to another family.
Yeah. And bands like Wasp and We Are Sexual Perverts, apparently. But the way they dressed and the imagery that they used with, skulls and black and fire, and that sure didn't help.
No, man, they played on it.
But go back and look at a good old Molly Hatchet album cover from the decade before.
Yeah.
It's not much better.
Or throw Alice Cooper in
Alice
there,
Cooper,
who's a Sunday school teacher. Yeah. You see that on The Muppet Show.
He's on The Muppet Show. I thought that was awesome. I don't even know that I was allowed to watch that episode when it first came out.
So, somebody took a photograph of him the other day. He didn't know the photograph was happening. He was at not in his makeup and everything, but he was just at a shelter handing out food.
Yeah, that sounds like something satanic.
Yeah, definitely evil.
Yeah, evil person.
You're trying to recruit people right there.
Yeah.
That's right.
Street people are Satanists.
Potato soup and some Satanism? But only if you want crackers.
But that ties into something I always talk about that, because you can also go back and look at McCarthyism the same way you look at this panic here in the Red Scare. And, the 1950s was the time frame when we finally mandated, God we trust on our money.
Yeah.
It wasn't on there. It was on some off and on, but it was actually required because of their fear of godless commies. And
that's the most Generation X thing I've ever heard in my life.
And that is actually, I think, playing into this a lot, too.
Yeah.
Because, we still got, like you were talking about, the demonstration parades and stuff going on. And Reagan's going to save us all Star Wars because he's a godly man. Not the movie, the strategic arm.
Yeah. Strategic arm, yeah. His vision to bankrupt the Soviet Union, basically.
And it worked.
Yeah.
But almost bankrupted us, too.
Yeah.
I remember Ozzy Osbourne as being one of the people that was energetic to be. And I find it totally ironic that it plays over our storm music now. We hear Crazy Train at least once a night. We believe that's Kroger's anthem.
Well, we send television, music, but even print. In print, local papers would even say that there were signs of satanic things that had happened out at Old Shiloh Church, or that there was, I don't know. What are some of the other things that you guys remember even from not just the things on the news, but the local word of mouth and things like that?
Oh, yeah. Paragould, they were sacrificing cats in Linwood Cemetery to Satan himself.
Cat sacrifice. I forgot.
From everything I could hear, none of that really went on. There was just some stupid teenagers out in the middle of the cemetery, probably, may have been high on whippets, and just, being a general little ruckus, but they weren't out there, worshiping the fallen himself. They were just out there being teenagers.
Any of those outsider kids, in the 80s, you know.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
were Satanists.
Well, there you go to the West Memphis Three
Exactly.
because they were
That could
different.
be directly laid on the doorstep of Satanic
The
Panic.
3 outside kids who just didn't fit, just get blamed, round up the usual suspects.
Yeah.
The old Southern way of law enforcement.
Yep.
And the people who convicted them still won't admit
That they were
that they're wrong.
They're wrong. Yeah.
ruined their lives.
Yeah. Completely exonerated, but
They can't get that time back.
no. I mean, it's taken away from you. And it was. You're ostracizing, you're picking out the one who are ostracizing the outliers. Well, it's like Ozzy, too. Ozzy being all this, well, he just bought into it and decided to play it up. You're going to call me this? Well, by gosh, I'll make a full show of it. And I don't think he really meant to bite the head off that bat, but
No,
still.
he said that he thought that it was another one of those rubber bats.
Yeah.
And somebody actually threw a real bat.
Yeah.
And he didn't know until he bit the thing that was an actual bat. So,
rabies shots.
yeah, I hope I hope he was up to date on everything.
Made a heck of a career out of it.
Well, yeah, and all the symbols. Think about all the symbolism that we would
Slayer
associate.
around in the 80s. I couldn't remember. I was thinking of bands with album covers that would have
Yeah.
pentagrams and other things.
Upside down cross.
Skulls.
Iron Maiden.
Chipper Gore,
666.
Iron Maiden's a big one with the whole,
Mm,
was that Eddie?
Eddie.
Yep, Eddie.
Yeah.
And actually, Ozzy also bit the head off a dove.
Oh,
Yeah.
poor Dove.
I saw
Poor pussy.
that, and
Well,
he was pretty high at the time of it. I've seen
Really?
no way.
No.
Not
I've
Ozzy.
seen
Come on.
pictures of it. It was some kind of meet because I was watching a documentary. I don't know. And it was some kind of meeting with record executives or something, and there were doves released, and one came and landed on him, and he bit its head off.
Well,
But
he,
there's a picture of high as crap Ozzy, like,
he also reportedly snorted a line of ants and a dare between him and Motley Crue. So Ozzy just probably not a friend of the animal kingdom.
well, not in his younger days.
No, he loves those dogs though.
So does Sharon. Sharon loves those dogs.
Yeah, and then the whole Satanic Panic thing just carried on too, well into the 90s, and still had a way. I mean, they mentioned in one of the documentaries we were talking about, the Pizzagate was actually brought up on one of the first documentaries we watched about it, but also comes up in Carl Sagan's book. One of my favorite ones, The Demon Haunted World, Science is a Candle in the Dark, 1996. There's a whole chapter on the debunking UFO myths and looking at the problems with the Satanic Panic.
Mhm.
I actually consider that one of the best books I've ever read. So I was highly suggesting that.
You see it in film too. Still, I mean, you think about all the Conjuring series of things where this was happening during that time period as well, where you had the Warrens going out and doing all their work, and I'm sure they were probably looked at differently.
But didn't you brought it up? Why don't we talk about D&D?
I didn't play it, but you were a player, so but we watched the documentary.
Yeah, we did. Yes, we did actually watch a documentary called Satanic Panic, and it was a man. Is he a Methodist preacher?
He was. And I think he's now
Pentecostal, some kind of preacher.
He's under the religion of Pentecostalism.
Yeah, but he's some kind of preacher. But
I
he's
don't know
also a
if he's
big
just
D&D guy.
unattached at this point, because I thought he left the church and seemed.
Okay.
Can't remember.
But yeah, he was a big D&D guy, and I mostly played other stuff when I played it in the 90s, but I do still have some D&D character sheets and whatnot. But
Satanism.
yeah, growing up, churches, parents, everybody was looking at Dungeons and Dragons and saying that it was clearly satanic. And there have been clearly 200 something suicides that can be directly attributed to playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And it all kind of started from there was this one kid and he went missing. Spoiler alert, he was found fine later. But
The damage was already done.
yeah, it was a few months, I think, before they found him. But he had gone he played D&D and he had gone off to, was he at a convention or something? But yeah, he just picked up and took off, and they found him like in Louisiana or Arizona or something several months later, just fine. He just ran away. But there was this one guy, last name was Deer, or Dear. And he said, oh, this kid played Dungeons and Dragons, and clearly he has gone mad, and he is probably wandering somewhere thinking that he is one of these characters.
But he had that hired investigator.
Yeah.
That's who he was.
And
Wow.
yeah.
The devil made him do it.
Now
Yeah.
it's faster to get that stuff out, but took so long to find him that everybody was willing to believe he was sacrificed somewhere in some woods not too far away.
And there was another kid, and he did commit suicide. And he did play Dungeons and Dragons. But there was actually a whole 60 Minutes episode. And Gary Gygax, the guy who was one of the co-founders of TSR Games and, creating Dungeons and Dragons, and TRS, whatever. And they interviewed this poor kid's mother, who was fully blaming his entire suicide on playing Dungeons and Dragons and going into this fantasy world. And Gygax got like 90 seconds. And they had actually let the mother see all of Gary Gygax's interview before she talks. So clearly
Quality journalism.
high quality journalism.
Yeah.
And for a long time, you had a lot of parents of kids who were playing D&D who were taking those books and setting them on fire and, Lord knows what else.
Well, I mean, look at the dice. Obviously, Satan created those dice.
Tell me about it. So, yeah, D&D just, it hit at, I guess, exactly the wrong time.
Yeah.
And, just a kind of a perfect storm of bad with Michelle Remembers. And then, obviously, if you've ever looked at one of the D&D books or a monster manual or any of the stuff like that, the Cthulhu, anything like that, of course it looks scary. It's supposed to look scary. None of these parents, none of these people who were standing up and saying, this is bad, this is the devil, they're not understanding that it's people working together to defeat something evil.
Well, there's a Saturday morning cartoon based off of Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah,
I didn't know that part.
Yeah, they were defeating the bad.
They were, but there
They
were
never played.
spells and there were warlocks and there were wizards, and that just set off the conservative.
Since it was
Christian alarm bells.
fantasy, it was just obviously bad. It's fantasy.
Yeah.
There was a made-for-TV film. I don't know if you know,
The one where the guy like jumped off a roof.
Yes.
Yeah.
The major. I guess they were trying to say this is why D&D is bad. It is clearly. I guess they were.
Was it in it?
Yes. Perfect word. I think it had Tom Hanks in it.
I believe you're.
Oh,
correct.
wow.
Yes.
Based off of fiction, a book that there was published, actually, in D&D.
Okay.
Yeah,
But there was a D&D one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I have to look for that.
Did you have any backlash with playing D&D as a youth?
Other than the standard "I want a nerd" kind of thing.
I only played D&D when I went off to college the first time. When I came back from college, it wasn't until I went up to go to ASU that I started playing it online. Our mother was not aware what this. I wasn't at home. Was not aware what this was. Had no idea we were playing it. If so, she would probably have banned us. She was Catholic. But I really prefer the computer to keep track of my sheets rather than doing it on paper. And there's still one I play. The amount of people in this room, there's at least twice as many people as would normally be on there right now. But it's called Realms, R-E-A.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Reichel, R-E-I-C-H-E-L, .net, 4000. Pretty much a work of art, really. But nobody's in there.
Is it dying out? No, actually, I have to say it's not. I think the younger generation, I say the Gen Zs, have picked it up, and like some of the kids that I work with, they are just now discovering it and making it new again, and I think it's great.
Stranger Things is popularized
Yes,
it. Big Bang Theory popularized it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there are students. I work with junior high age students, 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. That one was really upset when he came back to school because he wasn't going to have as much time to play D&D online. And I was like, I think that's one of the best things I've ever heard about being upset going back to school because you're not getting to play D&D. I'm like, we would have been such good friends when I was in school.
Where were we? Oh, we were at Warehouse 20. Thank you, Norm, at Warehouse 20. He showed Bridget a D&D themed My Little Pony set.
It was one of the best things I've ever seen in my life. And yes, Manor, we need to go to Warehouse 20. Okay, Norm, look at all those free plugs here. I expect to see that reflected at the cash register. But Warehouse 20 is great. Norm and his wife Sarah, who is the one who normally cuts my hair, they are awesome, and his whole place is just like a Gen X wonderland. They do D&D.
Mm-hmm.
They also do that at Eclectic Geekery, didn't they? Again, down in Walnut Ridge.
I believe so, yeah.
I don't know if they still do.
So they have a game area,
Yeah.
some tables set up for gaming.
Yeah, there's more acceptable nerd havens now because
Oh, yeah.
we don't have to live in the shadows.
One other really nice thing about playing muds is I have a reading speed of 400 words per minute and a scanning speed, looking for a particular word, of approximately 10,000. It's very important if a noun is trying to kill you. Manage to write it in that noun and find it in that text very quickly.
We kind of hit on it a little bit with Halloween and, not dressing up like witches and ghosts and whatever. But think about the number of times you heard someone say, oh, you better make sure you got your cat put up. You need to make sure that your animals are inside. And well, I heard that so-and-so's goat went missing. Goats. I mean, how many goats were supposedly sacrificed during the Satanic Panic?
A lot.
And there were no remains left because they had been so mutilated. That's why we didn't ever find the remains.
Not a trace of blood.
They were
because they obviously drank all the blood.
They drank the blood and they mutilated it. But yeah, a lot of animal sacrifice stuff. Did you ever hear story or hear tale of somebody's animals being stolen for sacrifice?
You hear stories, but it's never anybody It's like, oh, I heard about this guy.
Yeah. It's never a confirmed story.
No, it's second or third.
Fall under hearsay and horror not be admissible.
Yeah.
But Geraldo Rivera even made the claim that there are 1 million Satanists out there. And of course, other people would say they were working in the government and in law enforcement to cover up what they were doing. And one source we found said that they estimated that 2 million people had disappeared.
2 million children.
Children had disappeared, which that's 2/3 of the population of Arkansas. That would be noticeable.
Very noticeable.
But, the argument is, well, they're covering it up because there's those people in government and in law enforcement.
They've infiltrated the powers in our country.
They're here for our children.
And I feel like we should probably, at some point in this, make it clear that the Satanic Panic stuff is not referring to the actual Anton LaVey Church of Satan, because
that was bad for them.
Different
That's
thing.
a whole
different ball of wax. Yeah.
Matter of fact, the first documentary
believe in Satan
we watched had one of their spokespersons on trying to make it clear, this isn't us. This is not what we're about. We don't eat babies. What I found interesting was there's also a book written right at the kind of the endish of all the big stuff there. He did a lot of research. This Jeffrey Victor in 1994. The book's called Satanic Panic, surprisingly. But he found something interesting. And he said most of the people who made the claims were rural, poorly educated, religious conservatives, white, blue-collar people, families who felt that America was being attacked. They had anxiety over job loss, poor economic outlooks for them and their family's future. And they thought, this was the work of the devil. And I found this very interesting because I just read a book last year that's nowhere near the Satanic Panic. It is, let's see here, John O'Connor's book, The Secret History of Bigfoot. Field notes on the North American monster. What he was doing is trying to figure out why people hunt Bigfoot. And guess what? It's exactly the same. Oh, sorry, I keep hitting the table. It's exactly the same people. And what they want to do is claim that they have better knowledge than scientists. So what they're all wanting to do is kind of mess with the system. Well, scientists don't, they're part of a conspiracy to hide the evidence that they're real for some reason whatsoever, weaponizing them.
Still happening today.
Yeah, exactly.
People who bought into Satanic Panic.
I found that to be really interesting. That it's the same people who are upset now in this country. And
so what I'm hearing is that Bigfoot is the one that took the animals and was having sacrifices in the woods.
Bigfoot's
there you go.
Bigfoot's doing it.
Bigfoot is also an alien. So Bigfoot is actually an alien species.
There are different dudes. Some people have jokingly, I'm going to say, every once in a while you got to let your dog out, right, to use the bathroom when you're traveling. Some UFOs just pull over and drop them. but other people that could travel between dimensions as well, and so on. So it's this really fascinating book, and I want to go cover to cover on Victor's book too, because I think I found a lot of the same stuff. And I'm probably have to buy this one too. Just warning you.
And we'll make sure that we post links to all of those different books that Dr. Clements has mentioned today, so you can find those books and read them as well.
Get the Carl Sagan too. So.
And I kind of want to just, when you mentioned Stranger Things, I want to jump back to that for a second.
Yes.
In this most recent season, they did such an amazing job writing that basically the whole season is full on Satanic Panic. And that the football player who is Christy's boyfriend, and everyone was like, "Oh, he was so terrible. He was so awful. I was so glad when he went out the way he went out." And I'm watching it going, "That poor kid." Because yes, he's awful. The character, we're meant to be glad when he does get sliced in half. But spoiler alert. But at the same time, there's a lot of people. You see people talking about on Facebook. More than one person is getting on those posts going, This is what it was like during the Satanic Panic. You would have these perfectly nice people get absolutely sucked into this idea that Satan was doing these things and influencing people to do things. And in turn, they would end up doing horrible things because of that.
Yeah. It's been repeated a million times in history.
Oh, yeah. Salem witch trials, the Red Scare.
Germany.
Nazi Germany, yeah.
You see that character, and you're thinking, what a horrible person. But in his mind, he's the good guy. Mm-hmm. He's doing the righteous thing.
Exactly. And that's how all these preachers and reporters and parents what was that organization? Something against like Dungeons and Dragons called Bad.
Bad.
There was Mad Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and Bad was...
Oh, I just completely
forgot what, but it was something against Dungeons and Dragons. I'm so sorry. I'm probably going to get mad when I look it up.
Yeah, in the modern context, right now there are two people on their phones trying to find the answer.
Bothered about
Dungeons and Dragons.
Patricia A. Pulling, an anti-occult campaigner from Richmond, Virginia.
I'm just bothered about it.
This whole game.
An advocacy group. Yeah.
She became well connected in the group of people that were trying to spread information on how to spot people who had been victims of the ritual abuse and so on. And come to find out, she's just, no offense to her, pretty much a nobody who managed to find something she could do.
Yeah, basically, police would call her in and say, "Oh, we've got this expert," and she'd say, "Oh, I'm an expert because the police are calling me in." So,
she's a busybody.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, she did write a book, The Devil's Web: Who is Stalking Your Children for Satan? So,
she's bothered by Dungeons and Dragons. She'd really be upset by some Frank Franzetta art.
And we will not be posting the link to that book at the bottom of this.
Well, one thing I remember from growing up, and it's probably only tenuously attached to Satanic Panic, but it's just along the same line. I remember hearing the urban legend, which we didn't know was an urban legend at the time, that there were Satanists visiting town, and they would drive around with their lights off.
Oh, yeah, that's another one.
There is the fun part about this is a group of us, mainly composed of adults with children, all came fully armed, looking for these sort of people to try and solve them.
It's like modern witch hunts.
Yeah, exactly something. Yeah. It just matches it perfectly.
Mass panic and fear, vigilantism.
Times have changed. And all the witch trials and those right after King Philip's War, and then you get the ones in the 1630s and 40s or 40s and 50s. I can't remember, that are about mass immigration changes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So when did the Satanic Panic finally start to kind of die down?
Late 90s, early 2000s, probably.
Okay, let's see.
It probably hangs on a little bit every once in a while, but I know that the Tipper.
Tipper was a big one.
Parents Music Resource Center will be riding that a little bit, but I do not remember an end date.
Okay, I found this. It's interesting. In 1994, the National Center on Child Abuse and Neglect cooperated with a comprehensive nationwide study about satanic ritual abuse. In a survey made of more than 11,000 psychiatric and police workers throughout the country, researchers found that out of more than 12,000 accusations of group cult sexual abuse based on satanic ritual, not even one could be substantiated with any hard evidence. And so that's when things started to come out in the newspapers, like it was in the New York Times, satanic abuse unsubstantiated in case survey. So it's crazy to think that it was the early 90s whenever they were finally able to prove that there's no proof, you know?
And they think a lot of the people that were having the claims are being misled, and they're people who are working with them and may have just been victims of PTSD for some event, or was a dissociative identity disorder, because it could be really easy to manipulate them, and that's what they think happened to the Michelle, and Michelle remembers.
Yeah, I remember seeing the part of that one where they were saying, okay, supposedly she's held hostage by these people from this time to this time. But, look, let's go to the school. And look, here's her school yearbook. Here's her kindergarten picture with her right here in it, right in the middle. And she's supposed to have been held hostage
Oh, wow.
by the Satanists.
And all this happened right after she had a miscarriage and sought psychiatric help.
There you go.
And so she was kind of suffering from that and needed some good guidance.
And she ended up breaking up that psychiatrist marriage. She and the psychiatrist ended up married to each other.
Well, amazing.
Super
That's
ethical.
so,
I thought
so ethical.
Amazing.
And the person's still practicing?
Well, no, he died. But yes, he was still practicing after that.
Get his license, for a while. So it's just yet again. I'm sure whoever finds this 50 years from now will recognize between this broadcast and their time frame some more events that match.
Another panic going on of some sort.
Yeah.
I can't say I really recall much panic, but being the lone atheist in a small town, there was more than once that I was called a Satan worshiper, and I had to explain to them that is not how that works.
Yeah.
So
Hard for me to worship anything I don't believe in as well.
Yes. Derek and I, apparently there were some people at the local church that
we practice
told the kids that we practiced black magic.
Well, that's cool.
I mean, could you show us that?
Yeah, I mean,
Can't help you.
See,
yeah.
All right, Eric, watch. There he is.
Oh, let me go get my Necronomicon and we'll go. Well, is that? We think that's a real wrap up there? All right.
I think that we've covered the most important things about Satanic Panic that I can think of.
Well, all right, then we're going to sign off here. We are the GenXperts, and I'll tell you now, ladies and gentlemen listening out there, it is the beginning of October, so you have a month to get your cats in. You have been warned. They're coming for them. This is GenXperts. We're signing off.